In May 1956, Ed Sullivan told America that Elvis Presley would never appear on his show. He called him inappropriate for families and said he wasn't his cup of tea. The newspapers ran the quotes everywhere. But something strange happened less than 48 hours after a rival show aired. Suddenly, Sullivan was begging for Elvis. What changed his mind so fast? And why did he later order cameras to hide half of Elvis from the audience? The real story involves ratings wars, record-breaking deals, and 40,000 angry letters that nearly destroyed everything. Elvis Aaron Presley entered the world on January 8, 1935, in a tiny two-room shotgun house in Tupelo, Mississippi. Everything seemed simple at first, but even his birth carried a shadow that stayed with him for the rest of his life. His identical twin brother, Jesse Guerin, arrived 35 minutes earlier at 4:55 in the morning, but he was stillborn, and the room fell silent before Elvis had even taken his first breath. His parents, Gladys and Vernon, were shaken by the loss, and they buried Jesse in an unmarked grave at Priceville Cemetery. Elvis grew up knowing there should have been two of them, and he talked about Jesse as if the connection had never been broken. He even sang a song he called The Unborn Twin because he felt something in him lived for both boys. That belief shaped the way he saw life and death, and it pulled him closer to Gladys, who held him as if the world might take him away too. That tight bond only grew stronger as life handed the family more trouble. In November 1937, Vernon got caught altering a check worth only $4 from a hog sale that should have paid more. It was a desperate move during a desperate time, but it led to something far worse. On May 25, 1938, he was sentenced to 3 years in the Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman along with two others. Although he ended up serving only about 8 months, the damage was already done. Gladys couldn't keep up with payments, and they lost their home. 3-year-old Elvis cried for his father and traveled to Parchman on weekends just to see him through the bars. The Great Depression pressed on them until neighbors and government food assistance became the only way they survived. Those early memories settled deep into Elvis, shaping the way he clung to the people he loved and feared losing them. Yet something bright lived inside him too. From the time he could walk, he followed Gladys into the First Assembly of God Church in East Tupelo, where gospel music shook the room with voices full of longing and joy. Elvis would slide off her lap and run toward the choir even though he didn't know the words. Those sounds sank into him and never left. Later in 1960, he recorded 13 gospel songs in a single session as a tribute to the quartets he had admired when he was young. The gospel stayed with him just like his mother's worry and his father's mistakes, and it helped him build a sense of meaning when the rest of life felt heavy. Gladys never stopped watching him closely. Losing Jesse had carved fear into her heart, and she guarded Elvis with everything she had. He called her his best friend, and when she died in 1958, he felt the loss in a way that seemed to reopen every wound from childhood. Her love had shaped him. It made him crave approval and warmth wherever he went, and that hunger pushed him to shine on stage because applause felt like safety. Even so, he didn't grow up famous. He grew up lonely. Kids teased him in rural Mississippi, and he never felt like he fit in. Music became the place where he could breathe. The family moved often, the money troubles never went away, and he struggled to hold on to friendships. At night, he treated music like it was the only thing that understood him. The more isolated he felt, the more he poured into his voice. Over time, that loneliness slowly turned into the spark that carried him to stages he never imagined. By January 8, 1946, when he turned 11, he hoped for something exciting. Maybe a bicycle or a rifle. But Gladys handed him a $7.90 guitar from Tupelo Hardware instead. He cried because he didn't understand why she chose it. Then something shifted. Within months, the guitar became his closest companion. He practiced daily, soaking in gospel, country, and blues. He stood on chairs at talent shows so he could reach the microphone. By 12, he was performing on local radio. When bullies cut his guitar strings at school, classmates gathered coins to help him replace them. Those moments told him he wasn't invisible after all. Late in 1948, the family moved to Memphis, hoping for better work. But poverty followed them into government housing on the north side of the city. Still, the guitar came with him, and he never stopped practicing. Things changed again in June 1953, after he graduated from Humes High School. He walked into Sun Records with $4 to record a demo. He sang My Happiness, and that's when your heartaches begin. At the time, he just wanted to impress his mother or hear how he sounded on tape. Sam Phillips, the owner, was searching for someone who could blend country with black rhythm and blues, a mix many people saw as shocking in a segregated South. Elvis carried exactly that mix in his voice. He returned in 1954, kept jamming with local musicians, and on July 5, he recorded That's All Right with Scotty Moore and Bill Black. The moment the record played on the radio, people couldn't believe the singer was white. The sound felt new, exciting, and a little dangerous. It opened a door that had never existed before, and Elvis stepped right through it. Before all that, though, he worked hard. Right after high school, he took a job at a local machinist shop, then drove trucks for Crown Electric starting in June 1954. The long drives gave him space to think, to write songs, to dream bigger. He even picked up the slick pompadour hairstyle he later became known for. When he auditioned for bandleader Eddie Bond that same summer, Bond told him he should stick with truck driving because he would never make it as a singer. Rejection like that can break a person, but Elvis already knew what it felt like to be knocked down. He kept practicing until his fingers burned. That work ethic grew out of the same poverty that had shaped him since birth. His breakthrough came on July 19, 1954, when his first single, That's All Right, was released. During that July 5 session, he had picked up Arthur Crudup's song and turned it into something alive and new. Sam Phillips heard the magic immediately. Dewey Phillips played it over and over on July 7 because listeners kept calling in disbelief. More than 40 calls poured in that night. That reaction signaled the birth of rock and roll, and Elvis stood at the center of it. Between July 1954 and November 1955, he released 5 Sun singles, 10 songs in total. They didn't reach the national Billboard Top 40, but they spread across the South like wildfire. One of them, I Forgot to Remember to Forget, reached number 1 on the Billboard Country chart in 1955. Elvis had become a regional star, and his fan base kept growing even if the national charts hadn't noticed yet. His first real national breakthrough came with Baby Let's Play House, released in April 1955. It climbed to number 5 on Billboard's country chart by July 16 of that year. That song caught the attention of big record companies. Suddenly Elvis wasn't just a Southern favorite, he was a rising force. Then a figure stepped into his life who changed everything. Colonel Tom Parker, a Dutch immigrant with a past he hid behind stories and carnival tricks, saw Elvis as a gold mine. In November 1955, he convinced Elvis and his family to sign a management contract. Parker wasn't a real colonel, and he had arrived in America under circumstances he never discussed openly, but he knew how to promote an artist. His entry marked the beginning of a long partnership that was brilliant and controversial at the same time. By November 21, 1955, Parker had arranged a deal with RCA Victor that shook the music industry. RCA paid Sam Phillips $40,000 for Elvis's contract, an amount so large it made national headlines. It opened doors to distribution, promotion, and a national audience that Sun Records could never reach. From that moment forward, Elvis Presley's rise began with a shockwave that moved through America faster than anyone was ready for. It all started when Heartbreak Hotel came out on January 27, 1956. The song slipped into the Billboard Pop chart at number 68 on February 22, then climbed so fast that by April it was sitting at number 1. It held that spot for 7 weeks and stayed on the chart for 27 weeks total. It sold more than 1 million copies by mid-1956, giving Elvis his first gold record. People watched something new happening as it became only the second single in history to hit number 1 on the pop, country, and rhythm and blues charts simultaneously. By March 7, the record had already crossed 300,000 sales, and the numbers kept rising. Heartbreak Hotel didn't just send Elvis forward. It bent the path of American music, becoming the best-selling single of 1956 and pushing Elvis into a national spotlight almost overnight. Soon the whole country was watching him, and that attention exploded on June 5, 1956, when Elvis walked onto the Milton Berle show. He performed Hound Dog without a guitar, using the microphone like it was part of his body, moving his hips in a slow and playful way that older viewers called dangerous and indecent. The whole thing lasted just a little over 2 minutes, but the reaction was instant. Within 10 days, Milton Berle received an estimated 500,000 pieces of mail from people calling Elvis vulgar and obscene. A music teacher named Harry Feldman called it execrable taste, almost obscene, while others simply said it felt animalistic. The backlash only made the performance bigger. People argued about him everywhere, and with every debate, Elvis's fame grew hotter, making him both a target and a superstar at the same time. That set the stage for what happened on July 1, 1956, when Steve Allen, who was contractually required to feature Elvis, decided to soften the controversy. He dressed Elvis in a tuxedo and had him sing Hound Dog to a live basset hound on stage. Elvis barely moved. Everything felt stiff and safe, and many fans saw it as humiliating. Even a young critic named John Landau said he felt deeply offended watching it. Elvis felt the sting too. When he went back to Memphis afterward, he told the crowd he would show them the real Elvis that night. That moment on Steve Allen's show became a symbol of how television tried to tame rock and roll, even though it never fully worked. Just before this, something else had unfolded. In May 1956, Ed Sullivan told the country that Elvis would never appear on his show. He said the performances were not appropriate for families and even called Elvis not his cup of tea. Newspapers ran the quotes everywhere, but everything flipped in less than 2 days after Elvis's Steve Allen appearance aired opposite Sullivan's show. Steve Allen pulled a Trendex rating of 20.2 while Sullivan's dropped to 14.8. Allen captured 55.3% of the audience while Sullivan held only 39.7%. CBS panicked. Executives immediately contacted Colonel Tom Parker, begging for Elvis to appear. Suddenly, Sullivan's moral concerns disappeared. Ratings mattered more than anything else. Colonel Parker saw the opening and pushed it further. He negotiated a record-breaking deal for Elvis to appear on Sullivan's show 3 times for a total of $50,000. That was more than $16,000 per appearance at a time when other performers were getting around $5,000. The amount was unheard of and made Elvis the highest-paid television performer in 1956. It even remained unmatched when the Beatles appeared on the same show in 1964 for only $10,000. 3 appearances were set for September and October 1956, then a final one in January 1957, solidifying Elvis as a national force whose controversy only made him more valuable. But controversy kept following him. When Elvis appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show in September and October 1956, the cameras showed him head to toe. That decision brought roughly 40,000 complaint letters to CBS from church leaders and parent-teacher groups calling his movements obscene and inappropriate. Supportive letters came too, but they totaled around 30,000, showing just how deeply divided people felt. Newspapers printed warnings about the dangers of Elvis's influence on young people. The pressure grew so heavy that CBS and Sullivan had to rethink how they would present him on television. That wave of criticism is what led to one of the most famous decisions in broadcast history. On January 6, 1957, during Elvis's 3rd and final appearance on Sullivan's show, cameras were ordered to show him only from the waist up. Producers wanted no sight of his hips or legs. Even so, the crowd's screaming reactions hinted at what they still couldn't see, which made the performance feel even more charged. Some people believe this strict censorship happened because Elvis had exaggerated his movements during an earlier appearance. Whatever the truth was, the waist-up broadcast became a symbol of how the culture and the network were clashing over the future of entertainment. Even censored, Elvis delivered massive ratings and cemented the moment as one of the most memorable in television history. After this, Colonel Parker was furious. The censorship angered him deeply, and he decided to make sure networks couldn't control Elvis again. He demanded $300,000 for any future television appearance. The number was so high that no network could agree to it. As a result, Elvis didn't return to national television until 1960 after his Army service. The move made Elvis rarer and more mysterious, which Parker believed increased his value, even though it pulled him away from the television world that was shaping American culture in powerful new ways. Then came March 24, 1958, the day known as Black Monday. Elvis reported to the Memphis Draft Board and was inducted into the United States Army. His serial number was 5331071. Colonel Parker arranged for news crews worldwide to capture every moment. After processing at Kennedy Veterans Hospital, Elvis boarded a bus to Fort Chaffee in Arkansas. Later, he was sent to Fort Hood in Texas for basic training. Many expected him to join special services to avoid regular duty and continue entertaining troops. But Parker believed serving as a normal soldier would help Elvis's public image and prove his patriotism. So Elvis worked, trained, and lived like every other serviceman for 6 months before being sent to Germany. The choice shaped how people saw him, showing discipline and humility even while he was at the height of fame. Just before leaving for Germany, something broke inside him. On August 14, 1958, his mother Gladys died suddenly at 46 years old. Elvis rushed home on emergency leave but arrived too late to say goodbye. At the hospital, he fell to his knees beside her bed and cried in a way reporters said they had never seen from any celebrity before.